Jesus brings abundance to 5,000. Welcome to Daily Bible, your source for exploring the most inspiring and transformative stories from Scripture. Today we're diving into the story of the feeding of the 5,000, one of the most well-known miracles performed by Jesus and recorded in all four Gospels. Join me as we journey through this extraordinary moment that continues to inspire faith and trust in God's provision. The story begins with Jesus withdrawing to a solitary place. He had just learned of John the Baptist's death, and he sought a quiet moment to grieve and pray. But news of his whereabouts quickly spread, and large crowds followed him on foot. These people were hungry, not just for food, but for hope, healing, and spiritual nourishment. When Jesus saw the crowd, he didn't turn them away. Instead, his heart was moved with compassion. He healed the sick among them and ministered to their needs, embodying the love and care of God. As evening approached, the disciples began to worry. They were in a remote area, far from any town, and the large crowd, numbering thousands, had no food. The disciples came to Jesus with a practical suggestion: send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food. But Jesus' response surprised them. He said, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." The disciples were baffled. "We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish," they replied. To them, the resources at hand seemed laughably small in the face of such a great need. But Jesus wasn't concerned about how little they had. He told them, "Bring them here to me." This moment is a powerful reminder that when we bring what we have, no matter how insufficient it seems to Jesus, He can transform it into something extraordinary. Let's pause here for a moment. How often do we feel that what we have to offer, our time, talents, or resources, isn't enough? This story challenges us to trust in God's ability to multiply what we give. If this message speaks to you, take a moment to subscribe to Daily Bible for more powerful lessons and reflections from Scripture. Together, let's grow in faith and trust in God's provision. Jesus directed the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, He looked up to heaven, gave thanks, and broke the loaves. He handed the pieces to the disciples, and they began distributing the food to the crowd. What happened next was nothing short of miraculous. The food multiplied in their hands. Everyone ate and was satisfied, not just a small snack, but enough to be fully nourished. After the meal, the disciples gathered the leftovers and filled 12 baskets with the broken pieces. The abundance was staggering. Not only had the crowd of 5,000 men, plus women and children, likely totaling over 10,000 people, been fed, but there was more food remaining than they had started with. The feeding of the 5,000 is rich with lessons for us today. It shows us Jesus' compassion for both physical and spiritual needs, His power over creation, and His desire to involve His followers in His work. Notice that Jesus didn't simply perform the miracle Himself. He involved the disciples, asking them to distribute the food. This story also challenges us to trust God in times of need. The disciples focused on the scarcity of their resources, but Jesus focused on the abundance of God's power. When we place what we have, no matter how small, into God's hands, He can do immeasurably more than we could ever imagine. Finally, the feeding of the 5,000 points to Jesus as the bread of life. Later in His ministry, Jesus would say, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." This miracle foreshadows the spiritual nourishment that Jesus offers to all who come to Him in faith. Thank you for joining me today as we reflected on this miraculous moment in the life of Jesus. The feeding of the 5,000 reminds us that no need is too great and no offering too small for God to work wonders. If this story has inspired you, don't forget to subscribe to Daily Bible for more stories of faith, miracles, and God's love. Until next time, may your heart be filled with trust, your spirit with gratitude, and your life with the abundance of God's blessings.